Time for a little visit with Ed Smith, and we're going to talk about air conditioning. Stay tuned, it'll be fun. It's related to classic cars, not your brand new one. Okay, Ed, you mentioned the other day to me that we talked about air conditioners and how they work, and I realized I don't know very much about it. And you've obviously thought about it and dealt with it. So you've got some parts there. Tell me, how does a basic air conditioning system work on a car?
Yeah. Well, I've been in the automotive business my whole life.
Yeah.
I started in 1959, I guess, and in that time we had air conditioning, and we worked on it a little bit, and then I went to several seminars on air conditioning, and I thought to repair an air conditioner and know what you're doing, you really need to go to some of those seminars, and they would tell you. The instructor was really, I had some good instructors, tell you what's going on,
Sure.
Plus factory bulletins and stuff like this, and decide really what makes an air conditioner work. And if you find out what makes it work, it's easier to fix them.
Sure, right. That makes sense.
It's a lot easier to fix them.
Right, right.
And some of the newer cars just kind of got away from me because I haven't done air conditioning for some time, as far as the last 5 years.
So we'll say that this conversation is more in the classic car air conditioning.
Maybe that type of thing, and where air conditioning came from.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and actually the air conditioner, people wanted to, I asked people, you know what makes an air conditioner work? And they have no idea.
Right.
All they know is turn the knob and it gets cool in the car.
Right.
Yeah. And something happens when the car motor overheats.
Right, right.
Something happened. They don't know what happened, but it has to be the motor problem, not the air conditioner problem.
Right.
So there's so many things that air conditioners came up through over the years. So even in the old Chrysler products, they had a V compressor with 2 pistons in it and 2 belts. And even the 2 belts on it in Chrysler Imperial slipped, squeal all the time at a stop sign.
Wow.
So sometimes, and even I've installed some of those on those type of cars that would slip the belts and stuff. We had a little air switch, a little flip. A round piece of tin hooked to a switch. It was not factory made, but aftermarket. And every time you'd stop, the fan would stop blowing air and shut the compressor off. So if you're setting a stop sign, the compressor didn't run.
Okay, so it'd keep the car running, but you wouldn't get air conditioning.
Well, it would get warm in the car because the compressor. And as soon as you did, the wind from the fan would blow the switch over and turn it back on, and you were going down the road. So it was a pretty neat thing. Saves a lot of problems of belts coming off and slipping.
Oh, so I'm not trying to understand. So this isn't something you operated. It happened under the hood.
Yeah, under the hood, yes.
Automatically.
By the engine fan.
Okay.
The fan on the motor, it would blow that little switch back and forth.
So you use the wind
from the
to either keep it on or off.
Yes, and blow it on.
Interesting.
Yeah, some of those things. And so, anyways, and that part of it was the compressors, the big ones, and General Motors had one that was a long compressor. A6 was a round compressor, and that didn't have a pistons in it. It had several little pistons in the back, but about the size of a quarter.
Okay.
So it ran half the horsepower it took to run it.
Oh, way more efficient.
That was efficient. More in 1956 and 57, that compressor came out, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, it's hard to get they never made an air conditioner, I don't think, that for 49 Chevrolet 6-cylinder.
Okay.
They didn't have that. So more comfort came into Cadillac and Oldsmobile with the bigger motors.
Right.
They had some V8 motors that would actually run a compressor and an automatic transmission and still propel the car.
I see.
So in there. So anyways, what you're doing when you're with this compressor thing, so I wonder what the compressor is for. So the compressor is basically to compress the Freon. You're not doing anything but moving the Freon. The Freon comes inside the car and takes all the hot air out of the car.
Okay.
Freon will transport heat.
Okay, so the Freon that's in the car becomes the temperature of the inside of the car.
That's right.
And so then you're compressing it.
And then it goes out the compressor and press that, let's say 4 times.
Okay.
So once you compress that air 4 times, compress the Freon, you still have the same temperature.
Okay.
So now you're moving the temperature from 40 degrees, maybe 4 times, 160 degrees in front of the radiator.
Right, okay.
So you're transferring that Freon out there, it's 160 degrees. And you're putting it in front of the radiator of the car, under the condenser out there, and letting the wind blow over it when you're driving on the road and it's 110.
So you have a differential of temperature there.
Temperature, so basically as long as you keep the car going down the road, maybe above 40, 50 miles an hour, you'll dissipate that heat.
Okay.
And then the Freon goes through a little valve.
Okay.
And slows back down again.
Okay.
back down to the normal 40 pounds
Okay.
and collects more heat.
Okay.
Then it goes back out and the compressor pumps it back up to 160 pounds.
Okay.
I mean, maybe 160 degrees,
Uh-huh.
and maybe 250 pounds pressure.
Oh, I see.
You know, the pressure goes up with the Freon, but it still has the heat.
Okay.
You put the heat out in front of the radiator and dissipates it, and now you're cool inside the car.
Okay, so we hear sometimes, and I'm not a technician at all, but I remember knowing about a high side pressure and a low side
That's
pressure,
right.
and that's what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
and it was controlled by this valve.
Okay,
Early styles was an
really?
expansion valve.
Okay.
It has a little tube here, and this is stretched over and
Uh-huh.
hooked on the other line going the other way.
Okay.
So this sensed that,
Okay.
and then controlled this valve.
Huh.
Made this valve go in and out, and that without manually. This is a valve like a water hose valve.
Okay.
Goes in and out, and that would shut the Freon and make it high, low, and high, low side and high side.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess you
Yeah.
can't have it always cooling.
No, you
or-
couldn't have that. No, it'd freeze up.
Right. Okay.
So this controlled that thing. It was called expansion valve. Today we don't have that.
Okay.
Uh,
But in a
part of
classic
that-
car, you might find that in a classic
you
car.
might find in a classic car you would, yeah.
Yeah.
Even that big compressor, then Freon actually years ago they found out the tubes in front of the air conditioner, in front of the condenser, and that's the piece in front of the radiator of the car.
Yep.
Had a round pipe in it,
Sure.
round pipe,
Yep.
and they found out the Freon was going through the round pipe and not dissipating heat.
Okay.
So some engineer found out that if you flatten those things like a radiator,
Uh-huh.
radiator don't have round holes in it.
Right.
It has flat holes,
Uh-huh.
oblong. It dissipates twice as much heat.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
'cause
they're much better at dissipating when they're
flat
more
tubes.
surface area, I guess.
Flat. As soon as they did that,
Uh-huh.
it would freeze you out of the car.
Okay. That
So
made
we
a
had
big
way too much compressor and way too much expansion valve
Uh-huh.
than we needed.
Okay.
So to get rid of that big V compressor and the two belts that's slipping,
Mhm.
they could go down to a small compressor like this one.
Okay.
This
right.
is a little Sanko compressor. Several companies make this. It's just a
Yeah.
little, it does have pistons in the back here.
Okay. Yeah. It
And
turns,
it
doesn't it, like a
turns
rotary thing?
Like a rotary, yeah, a little like rotary motor, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Got electric on here with the clutch.
Okay.
So then this is a high side. It takes in the bigger hose and the smaller one there. So now we could run with just maybe one belt.
Okay. Right. Because it's not using as much
It's
power.
not used as much because we've dissipated more heat easily out in front of the radiator.
Uh-huh.
That was the secret there, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, and then this compressor, it don't have enough for any kind of oil. So then we have to have an oil can.
Ah, that's what that is.
This is the oil pan.
Okay.
So then this could have anything. Some people think there's something in here. There's a little dry thing, but don't mean much.
Okay.
And there's actually, the tubes go in here
Okay.
and dump all the oil in here,
Uh-huh.
all the Freon, and it goes in here, and the Freon separates because it just stops, and then it fills with oil.
Okay.
And then there's a little hole in the bottom here that takes back out a little drip, 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 drip of oil, and that's enough to go out through the compressor and lubricate everything.
So it works kind of like an engine oil pan where the oil gets
Exactly
dumped in,
right.
and then the oil pump slowly pulls it up.
Pulls it
as
back out
wants
with a
to.
little hole in
Ah,
the
okay.
bottom. Drip, 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 enough drips of oil to lubricate everything is fine.
Very good.
Now we can put this oil reservoir,
Uh-huh.
oil tank, up on the firewall somewhere or put it
Okay.
wherever you want to.
Right. It's
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be
And
attached
when
to the
the air
compressor.
conditioner's running good, this is about as cold as a good can of pop.
Okay. Very
It
good.
does get cold.
Yeah.
When you know the air conditioner, if you want to know it's working, just reach over and touch it.
Okay.
It'd be nice and cold.
Yeah.
Sometimes we would tell them, the oil dissipates sometimes, you're going to get a leak.
Yep.
So if we was going to service this, we'd take it off,
Uh-huh.
dump all the oil out of it,
Okay.
and you'll find it clear. There's nothing in it.
Okay.
There's no, unless there's a bunch of, if the compressor goes bad, it comes
Uh-huh.
apart, from age and
Right.
starts flying apart with chunks of metal, they'll all be in here.
So there's going to be debris in there.
Yes, there'll be debris in here.
I see. Okay.
And you're right. By dumping it out, here comes
right.
debris. At that time, you want to throw this away.
Okay. But if there hasn't been a mechanical failure,
There's nothing.
there's no moving parts.
There's no reason to change that.
I see. Okay. Got
There
it.
really isn't.
Okay.
I remember I had one about 20 years ago that we put one of these on because the customer wanted a new one.
Uh-huh.
And his air conditioner lasted about a day and a half.
Uh-oh.
And he brought it back, and we took the compressor and just poured dry aluminum out of it. I took this off and just poured, looks like salt and pepper out of it. And this was full of oil. And they never poked a hole in the bottom of it.
Okay.
There's a little filter in a hole. So all the oil went in here, stayed in here. The rest of it was all dried. It wasn't manufactured right.
Okay. Wow.
Defect.
Wow,
and it's
man.
compressor. This they give us a new one, but
Yeah.
even though
It's a lot of trouble.
yeah, a lot of trouble. But anyways.
Okay.
And then, so now instead of having this, they found out with the lower pressures
Uh-huh.
and with the smaller compressor and this and that and the bigger condenser stuff, they didn't need this adjustable expansion valve.
Okay.
Now it's got a valve inside one of the lines.
Uh-huh.
It's an orifice,
Okay.
a fixed hole in it, a fixed size.
I see.
And they found out a particular fixed size. I'll just say maybe 60 thousandths.
Okay.
I'm not sure what it is. I didn't
But
do
it's
my research
some
that much.
number, yeah.
But some kind of number. That fixed valve is enough to run the air conditioner completely without this adjustable.
Okay. So again, they've taken care of it, a kind of a moving part.
Yes, a moving
And
part.
it becomes just the right measured hole.
Something rarely, it isn't uncommon to have an air conditioner in the car and you have it for 4 or 5 years and haven't done a thing to it.
Okay. So again, I guess if there's an orifice with a little hole in it, if you have a catastrophic failure, it's going to plug that thing.
It's going to plug. It's got screens on the orifice.
Oh, okay.
It's a whole tube
I see.
with little fine screens in it.
Yeah. So that should catch.
If it catches anything at all,
Yep.
then everything will be caught there and it will not be in the rest of your system too.
Oh, good. Right.
So if something happened in your system, pull that valve out. You just take the hose off, pull the valve out, look at it, either replace it or clean it.
Okay.
And all the stuff's there. It isn't in the system. There's no use to flush the rest of the system.
Got you.
It's all in that valve, in that screen.
Uh-huh.
So now let's say a Suburban.
Yeah.
We have 2 units with 1 compressor.
Oh, right.
So now we have an orifice tube in front that will give you air. Now we got the same Freon teed off going to the back without an orifice tube. We'll have an expansion valve.
Okay. So they still do have applications sometimes.
I think maybe in 2000 somewhere, I think they still do as far as I know.
All right.
But the rear unit in the back of the Suburban will have an expansion valve.
I see.
The front will have an orifice tube.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
So when you end up compressing this stuff, you say sometimes let's say the pressures are, that's why the pressures are maybe 40 on the compressor on the low side and 200, 210 on the high side. You're compressing that hot air that goes in the Freon, you're compressing that Freon maybe 4 times.
Okay.
That moves it out in front of the car, and then when you're driving down the road, it dissipates the heat. It comes back in again and gets more heat and puts it in front of the radiator.
Just around and around it goes.
So then that's why sometimes you see a taxi cab we used to with that unit on top of the roof. And they had fans up there.
Okay.
So then the fans up there would blow it even if it's just at a stop sign.
Interesting. So if you have a classic car taxi cab that might have one of those,
it would have a unit on the roof.
Okay. Interesting.
And we go back to the same thing with semis.
A
semi-trailer's got that air conditioner on it.
Yep.
And with that big unit up there pumping with the motors running.
Yep.
It will suck all the hot air out of the whole semi-trailer.
Right.
Full of fruit and dissipate it out in the air as the truck goes down the road 60, 70 miles an hour.
So that reefer, I think they call it.
Yes.
It's is that powered by diesel fuel?
Yeah. Yes, probably it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That
little
makes
diesel
sense.
motor up there. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
Just keep it going. Interesting.
So that's all. Yeah. It's kind
All
of
right.
interesting what makes it work, and that's as simple as it is. If you know a little bit about it, you can just diagnose it. What's the problem is that one don't do the other one.
Right. And I guess the only thing you can't do yourself is do the evacuation.
The evacuation. Now I've put 1 year. I was in an air conditioning business here, and I hired a guy to put air conditioners in. I put a few in, but 1 year we put in 50 air conditioners in cars that never had air before.
Oh.
Some of them for Luke Air Force Base, the officers out here would bring a car from overseas and didn't have air. So we put air conditioners in them and stuff. And then on a hot, and all you do when you evacuate it with a pump, that you pump the moisture out of the unit.
Okay.
With 1 drop of moisture traveling through this unit going around, it would freeze this expansion valve.
Oh, really?
Freeze that little orifice.
Huh.
And then once it froze that, it would just freeze the line back up. It was all frosted line.
Yeah, once it's frozen, it's plugged, really.
Yeah, just like the water would plug that. If you put it on suck it down with the moisture, with a vacuum, you suck all the moisture out of the unit.
Okay.
It wasn't like pulling the air out of the unit
Right.
so you could put Freon in it. That's not the way it works.
More to take the moisture out.
That's not the reason you did that.
I see. Okay.
You did it because the moisture can't stay in a vacuum.
All right.
As soon as you put it on there, the moisture's gone.
Right.
If you put moisture on a cup of water and seal it up, the water would be gone as soon as you pump the moisture in.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
so that's what those Schrader valves are doing to
that's right.
give you a chance to.
Yeah. And here's a little Schrader valve here. This happens to be one that's got 2 valves on it.
Okay.
And a line goes on it. And you can buy most of these things to repair fuel air conditioning lines. Has these serrations, and sometimes the hose gets bad. We just chuck the hose off and take the bad spot and shove it back on here and put a clamp on it.
Okay. Very
Especially
good.
the low side, there's only 40 pounds in it.
Right. And I guess with the dye they put in it, you can kind of find out where your
and of course there's oil in the system.
Yep.
And anytime there's oil in the system, it leaks oil.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you get a hose that's got a little oil on it,
yeah,
you know it's leaking.
I see. Okay.
I've seen hoses, air conditioner hoses. Somehow they make them, they run them through a machine that's got like needles on it and propels this hose through manufacturing.
Oh.
So I've seen a hose so long, and it's every inch, it's got a little bubble of oil all the way down the center of the hose.
Really?
Where this machine had poked the holes in the outer coating. That's kind of fun.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, to detect that, you have some different burners. We have a propane torch with a hose on it. Anytime that you have a propane torch and you get it close to Freon, that thing would turn light green, the flame.
Oh, really?
Suck Freon in it.
Wow.
It turns light green right away. So right here, you just sniff around there. And of course, nowadays they got electronic stuff.
Right. But this is, we're back to the classic car days.
That's the classic car with this propane thing with a hose on it. And you get close Freon and the flame turns light green.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
They burn a different color.
Yeah, different color. Yeah. You can and then now they have electronic stuff that beeps every time it's free. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't think they have much Freon problems.
Yeah. Well, that's a good overview of how these things
service
work.
These, actually in this thing here, there's a little Schrader valve in there. Looks the same thing as on the your inner tube.
Okay, right. Sure. That's just like your tire
tire
filler. Yeah.
I think they patented that thing maybe in 19 something, I don't know.
Maybe even the 1800s. It's an old invention.
Maybe that same valve.
Yeah.
The tire valve, it goes in your
They've been,
tire,
those valves have been around for a long time.
So they're just using old stuff.
Yeah. Nothing new there.
Schrader valve, yeah.
Just some good aluminum welding to put that tank together. That's all.
Yeah. I'm sure it was. So that's kind of what interests everybody, and maybe somebody learned something about it.
Yeah.
The old technologies.
Okay.
This is the dryer. Now this is not accumulator. There's no oil in this thing. Well, a little bit of oil, but this can has a bag inside of it with some things like charcoal.
Okay.
And that charcoal, you see that little bag in your pill box?
Oh,
that sucks, sucks in all the moisture.
Right, it absorbs the moisture.
When those pills are made in China.
Yeah, right.
They're aspirins.
Yeah.
And they get them over here and they have that little bag in your aspirin bottle there.
Yep.
This thing's full of that.
Okay.
It's got a bag in here. So as the Freon goes, this is not anything to do with the expansion valve or anything, but the Freon goes through here, in its bag and back out again, and takes all the moisture out.
So if a little moisture does get in, it gets captured
It gets
there.
Captured here.
I see.
Sometimes these bags empty, get rotted from the moisture. And then if you took this and shook it, it'd be like a whole bunch of marbles.
Then you know for sure something wrong.
Yeah, and it has a side glass on here.
Oh.
Little glass.
Yes, it does.
And if it's low on Freon, there's bubbles going by here.
Oh, see, it's got another purpose there.
Yes.
Interesting.
So if you just see an old air conditioner and see a sight glass somewhere, there's bubbles going by, you can just add a little Freon, maybe a half a can.
Okay.
And it starts cooling again. And it should be a half a can will really affect
That's a lot.
The operation of the air conditioner.
Okay.
Even if it's a half a can low.
Then
anyways, it'll be bubbles. So you have to clear it up with the bubbles and you got cold air again.
Interesting. You know what, Ed? We know what I like? I like how you pick things up and you know what's inside.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That makes me happy.
So it's kind of funny. And then the new stuff with, I don't even know about air conditioning now with the new Freons and stuff. And And then they say that you're not supposed to expose them. You know, I think junkyard still just take the hose off and let it go.
Yeah.
We're supposed to capture all of it. And Freon used to be 50 cents a can.
Right.
Forever, and you could buy a whole barrel of it for $25 or something.
Right.
Freon 22 is a different thing. It runs at different pressures. Also, is your house air conditioning.
Okay.
12 has always been car.
Okay. Right.
Then they come 134 is a little bit with these lower pressures. 134 works good.
Okay.
But I think since then of different manufacturers come out with several other things beside that.
Okay. Interesting.
There's more environmental better for the environment. Yeah.
One thing you said that we didn't mention was the fact that different refrigerants might work at different pressures. So it's not that they're interchangeable.
That's what. See, the different refrigerators like Freon, regular Freon 12 had to be a different pressure. In your house air conditioner is a different pressure.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Don't just think they're all the same.
They're not the same. No, not at all.
Gotcha. Okay.
So then some of these newer ones, I think, runs a lower pressure. And then you're supposed to have a big equipment, buy a $5,000 of equipment. If you're going to work on an air conditioner, and plug it in and suck all the Freon out of it and put it in a container.
Yep.
And then when you get all done, you put it back in there again and charge him a few bucks. Maybe you charge him for his old Freon too. I don't know. Some for his new.
Right.
Everybody makes $1 or $2.
Everybody's making $1 or $2.
Yeah, as long as it works and everybody's happy.
That's right. Right.
So our air compressor, where we drain the water out of the bottom of the tank almost every day.
Even in the desert where it's so dry?
Yeah, sure. It's not so dry here sometimes.